Sometime back in 1966, when I was just a little guy, I was thinking the other day about how I had a pretty good childhood for the most part. And I remember, what did I do with my time back then? Well, I'd watch those great philosophers like Bugs Bunny and action shows like Speed Racer. And what did I do when I wasn't doing that? Well, I had this great thing back then. We didn't have video games, but we had blocks. And I had a whole bunch of blocks, and I would build this big tower. I'd build it as high as I could. And then I sat there and looked at it and said, well, now what? What do we do with the tower? Now that we built the tower, I said, I know, it's time to play Godzilla. And I'd put my arms out, and I would roar, and I'd walk through and destroy the tower. Now, I won't do my Godzilla roar for you right now, because, it's probably not as good as it used to be. The only chance you have of hearing Godzilla's roar is if my brother calls me and I forgot to turn off my cell phone, because that's his ringtone, is a Godzilla roar. But in a certain sense, we had there a microcosm of the two options before us in life. We can be builders and we can be destroyers. We can help build things up and tear them down. We can build people up by helping them and encouraging them and being there to console them and to teach them and to do a lot of good things to help people out. We can also tear people down, making fun of them, criticizing them, hurting them financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually even, bringing them away from God. We can be killers and we can be saviors. We can kill people physically, emotionally, mentally, verbally, physically. We can hurt people like bullies do, or we can be saviors. We can help protect people. We can give food to the hungry, shelter to the homeless. We can build people up by praying for them, with them, teaching them how to pray. We can save them from sin, save them from depression. We can do a lot of things to help, to build up, or we can destroy. So those are the options before us in life. Builders or destroyers, killers or saviors. Interesting options. Now, this parable today, I think, is probably the greatest of all the parables of Jesus. I used to go back and forth on this with the parable of the sower, but I think this one, and Matthew 25 is an amazing chapter. It's one of the greatest chapters in the Bible. But this parable, of the talents, I think really kind of gives us a very powerful insight into how life really works. So we start out, we've got this man going on a journey. Who's the man? God. What's the journey? The journey is really us going on the journey, because we start out with God in heaven. It says in Jeremiah, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. I knit you together in your mother's womb. So, I made you a prophet to the nation. So God knew us. We existed in his mind. And he puts us here on this earth. And that's one of the nice things about children. They have that innocence of goodness because they're fresh from heaven. They're fresh from the face of God. As we go through life, then, we have to struggle to get back to God through prayer, resisting temptation, carrying the cross, so that when we get to the end of life and it's time to go back to God, the journey is over, we need to do our best to be ready for that moment. So we are servants. So the man is God, the servants are us. We're servants, we serve the Lord. He entrusted his possessions to them. Now that's another thing we need to recognize. We did not create ourselves. We did not give ourselves life. We were not consciousness floating in the universe and suddenly we decide, I think I'll make a body for myself today. I think I'll put myself down on planet Earth. God did that for us. God gave us a share in his spirit. He gave us consciousness. He gave us life. And so we are his servants. What we have, our hands, our body, our soul, ultimately in the sense it belongs to him. It says he entrusted his possessions to them. So now we have a free will, and that is truly ours, but it comes as a great price because, in order to have love, you have to have free will. And the consequences and responsibility of free will means you can choose to love the wrong thing. You can love yourself at the expense of the love of God and love of neighbor. You can be selfish. You can choose evil over good as well as choosing good over evil. So free will comes with it a powerful responsibility. It has the potential for great good and the potential for great evil. But the reality is, what we have is given to us by God. And one of the first possessions we have is our life. So we need to recognize that this life is given to us to use in the service of the love of God and neighbor. If we use it against the love of God and against our neighbor, do we expect God to give us another one? Do we expect Him to give us the potential to continue doing harm in eternity? This world and its circumstances are temporary. It's a place of testing that we may be rewarded. It's a place of training in the love of God, that we may reign with God in His love in eternity. And so by training, I mean we can make mistakes and we get forgiven, and we grow, we struggle. It's a place of labor. We work for God here and now, and in eternity we get to enter into the rest and the peace of God. So this is where it begins. So He gave 5 talents to one, 2 to a third, and 1 to each according to his ability. So we all have different lifespans. Some people shorter, some people longer. We all have different resources. Some people are richer, some people are poorer, some people are smarter, some people are less smart, some people are stronger, some are weaker, some have more physical beauty, some have less. We all have different talents. And the reality, though, is that we all have a free will. We're equal there. St. Thomas says that men are, have different in their physical perfections and things like that, but we are all equal at liberty. We have a free will, and we can choose good over evil. We can choose God over the world. And so, even though one has 5 talents, one has 2, one has 1, we all have the option to choose to use them for good. So, as we go along here, we see here, the one who received the 5 talents went and traded with them, made another 5. Now, first of all, the word talent actually in English is influenced by this parable. We hear, America's Got Talent, right? Isn't that one of those TV shows or whatever? So the word talent, actually, we see here in this gospel, talent was money. It's like, $500 bills or whatever, money. But now, because of this parable, the word talent, instead of meaning money in modern English, means ability or resources or things we have. So he's going to trade them. He goes to the bank and gets interest. What's the bank? The church. The church teaches us how to use grace, which is the currency of heaven. So, we in the world, we're all concerned. We want to make money, win the lottery, whatever. I remember a couple of times I prayed for the lottery. I was trying to reason with God. Now, look, if I win the lottery, I can build a parish hall. We can get, extend the church, do all kinds of good things. And I remember as I was thinking about that, I went up to read the gospel at the daily mass, and it said, "Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." I said, okay, I guess that's not the plan. I'm gonna move on in another direction there. So as we think about money, and the scripture even says, the love of money is the root, of all evil. So, sometimes we look up to people like, Bill Gates or Jimmy Buffett or whatever. They get all that money, all these guys run around with all kind of money, and we think, wow, wouldn't it be neat to have that money? But the reality is, once the day comes that their heart beats its last beat, their money's no good here in eternity. It doesn't go with you. So what is the money, in quotes, of eternity? What is the currency? It's grace. So that's what we want. So that's why Jesus says, for everyone who has, more will be given. He's not talking about money, he's talking about grace. And so if we use the graces we are given properly and efficiently, he will give us more. So the more we are humble servants, prayerful servants, obedient, resisting temptation, doing the works of mercy, receiving the sacraments frequently and worthily. To everyone who has faith and uses it, more will be given. Everyone who has grace and uses it, and he will grow rich. In money? No, in grace. So what do we say about Mary in the Hail Mary prayer? Hail Mary, full of money? She's the highest saint in heaven. Does she have any money? Nope. Didn't have hardly any money here. Doesn't have any money there. But she's full of grace. And that, as I said, is the currency in eternity. You can do all kinds of things with money here. When you get there, money's useless. There is no money. So what is useful in eternity is grace. That's true riches, really beginning here and finding its true fulfillment there. So as we look at this parable, he's trading. So what does that mean? He's taking options, abilities, resources, and using them in a way that serves the love of God and neighbor, and then they increase. Perfect example. I've talked about this before. Our big Mary over here, she's 6 feet tall, standing on that stand with the angels and whatnot. She cost about $14,000. And there was a guy in the parish, and he said to me, "Father, I want to help pay for that statue." He heard me talking about it, and he says, "I'm going to pull $14,000 out of my retirement, and I'm going to buy that statue for you." I'm like, wow, that's really nice. So he did that. So he used one of the talents, one of the possessions granted to him for the love of God, love of the church, love of the neighbor. So he calls me up a couple weeks later, and he says, "Father, I got a phone call from my brother. Something we invested in years ago just came to incredible fruition, and I've got 3 times the amount that I gave you." So he got back what he gave to the church so he could restore his IRA. He made another, 14 plus 14, so he could have bought another thing for the church, and he could still have another $14,000 to buy himself something. So he would have been totally ahead, because you can't outgive God. But that's an example. So when we do things for the Lord, when we give to the Lord, he gives to us. So that's an example of trading. So we take what he gives us and use it. So the reward is wonderful. What does he say? "Master, you gave me 5 talents, I have made 5 more. In other words, you gave me faith and so much grace, and I have used it, and now my faith is much stronger. My service, the love of God, love of neighbor, a life of prayer, a life of obedience to the commandments, carrying the cross, the works of mercy." And he says the line we all hope to hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities. Come share your master's joy." So let's look at the other guy here. The ones that are doing good, which we hope to be, they have the describing words of "my good and faithful servant." We want to be good. We want to be faithful in the service of God. "I will give you greater responsibilities. Enter into your master's joy." So a joy where we share with God. The other guy here, this is the guy we don't want to be. So he gives a lame excuse, really criticizing God. Not good to criticize God, especially to his face. It just doesn't lead to anything good. "Master, I knew you're a demanding person." Yeah, God expects us to take what he gives us and use it for good things. And he gives us the strength and the opportunity. He gives us everything we need, just like an employer. You go to work somewhere, they give you the tools, the training, and you're supposed to work. How do you expect to get paid? If you get all that, the employer comes or your boss, like, "What are you doing? You just standing there doing nothing?" There's your tools, there's your work. Do your job, get your pay. But you see here, he says, "So out of fear I went off and buried your talent in the ground. Here it is back." In other words, if God gives us a life, time, opportunities, resources, faith, grace, he expects us to take that investment that he gave us and use it so he can give us more, and we can grow in responsibility, rise up in the heavenly corporation, as it were, in the service of the Lord. So what does he say? "You wicked and lazy servant." He was wicked because he probably used his resources and time for evil, breaking the 10 Commandments. Lazy, he didn't work for God. Then he says to him, "Should you not have put my money in the bank? Should you not have put the faith and the grace and the possession you have at the disposal of the church?" Meaning the church will teach you how to pray. The church will give you the sacraments. The church will teach you the commandments and the works of mercy so that you can go and invest your faith and your grace and your time and your life in the love of God and neighbor. So I could have got it back on interest with my return. Now then, take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. For everyone who has will be given more. Meaning if you use what you're given by God for the service and love of God and neighbor, you're going to get more. But the one who has not, even what he has, take it away and throw this useless servant into the darkness outside will be wailing and grinding of teeth. Rather frightening. So why is he going out into darkness? Because the life that he wants to live, the life that he has dedicated himself to, no longer exists. There's no money in eternity. All of the stuff that he's living for, he invested in the earth in sensual things. Now we can enjoy sensual pleasures and within reason, within moderation, although not against the commandments, but people can become addicted to the pleasures of senses in a way that's against the commandments, and they have a whole life that's in the earth. He took the money and he buried it, put it in the earth, living for the things of this world. Well, we're going on a journey to another world where these things no longer exist. And so he's thrown out into the darkness because there's nowhere else to go. There's just heaven. And if you can't get into heaven, what have you got? If you don't love God, you don't want to be in heaven with God, you've got nothing. You've got darkness, emptiness in eternity, a frightening prospect. In the scripture, it doesn't use the word fool too many times. There's a couple of times we see the word fool. The fool has said in his heart, "There is no God." We see that in the psalm. And we also see the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So the fear of the Lord, the love of the Lord, the service of the Lord is wise. To deny God's existence is foolish. We also see the wise man, the foolish man contrasted in the end of the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew's Gospel. The wise man built his house on rock. The fool built it on sand. What happens to sand? Water comes, washes it away. Well, it's the same thing with the love of the things of this world, the love of sinful things. They're going to be washed away. They're going away in time. We're moving forward from time into eternity. And so we need to be on the rock, which is Christ. So we see another example, just like this fellow buried his talent in the ground. In Luke 12, there was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked, "What shall I do? I don't have space to store my harvest." I'll tell you what he could have done. He could have given it to the poor. But instead, he tears down his barns to build bigger ones. And I will say to myself, "As for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, and be merry." He's using his free will and his talents and his opportunities for himself. Selfish, foolish, earthly. And so, what does God say to him? But God said to him, "You fool." You know you're in trouble when God calls you a fool. "You fool, this night your soul," some translations have life, "this night your soul will be required of you, demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus will it be for the one who stores up treasure for himself, but is not rich in what matters to God." What matters to God? The love of God and love of neighbor. Grace. So we have in this parable, I think Jesus has really given us, he's laid it on the line. Okay? This is life. This is your life. I've given you talents, possessions. I've shared with you my life. I've given you free will, options, training. It's up to you what you're going to do with it. So you can be a builder or a destroyer. You can be a savior, helping others get to heaven, helping yourself, or you can be a killer, destroying people physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's up to you. And so Jesus, as I said, I think this may be the greatest parable. You're welcome to tell me which one you think is the greatest of all the parables, but I'm pretty much going to go with this one, in my opinion. And so let us do our best to make use of this wonderful insight that Christ has given to us. God himself telling us, in a certain sense, the key to understanding life and why we are here and what he's doing, so that at the end of life we can hear him say to us, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibility. Share in your master's joy."